breaking news. Mexico's president now says President Trump's tariffs are paused for a month. President Trump confirmed the pause, saying Mexico will reinforce the border with 10,000 National Guard troops immediately as part of the negotiations. Let's go to ABC's Elizabeth Schulze on Wall Street, Matt Rivers in Mexico City, and Karen Travers at the White House. Matt, how significant is this deal, and what else came out of this conversation?
Well, this was the off-ramp that I think a lot of people had been hoping for. This is why this call was scheduled before this happened, and I think both sides will claim this as a win. The tariffs now being suspended for 1 month. President Sheinbaum coming out saying that President Trump agreed with her her suggestion that she would send 10,000 additional National Guard troops to the northern border. The big reason why the Trump administration says that they want these tariffs in place is essentially leverage to force Mexico to do more to stop the flow, the very large flow of fentanyl from here in Mexico to the United States, as well as migration, even though the numbers of migrants that we've been seeing go to the U.S. much lower than we've seen before. So President Sheinbaum essentially saying, okay, we'll reinforce the border with 10,000 troops. If all of this sounds familiar, it's because it's exactly what happened the last time President Trump threatened tariffs against Mexico. He did so against President López Obrador back in 2019. López Obrador responded by sending troops to the northern border. So it remains to be seen what difference this will actually make at the border, but this is clearly something that both sides will point to as a win. We kick the can down the road again in a month, and we'll have this conversation here on ABC News Live in 1 month from today.
We sure will. I know you'll stay on top of it for us, Matt. Karen, in the meantime, what's President Trump saying about the pause?
The president posted on social media confirming that he is pausing these tariffs on Mexico for a month and that he had a very friendly conversation with the Mexican president. And I think Matt gets at that point there, that this is just the pause for the month and that we are going to be talking about this again at that point, because the White House has not made clear exactly what metrics the president will want to see over that time. He is very happy, of course, that the Mexicans had agreed to send 10,000 National Guard troops to its northern border to stop the flow of drugs coming into the United States. But Diane, even as the White House and the president have said this is all about the drug trafficking and the drug flow, the president also last night talked about how the United States has been getting ripped off by countries all around the world for too long. So he was talking about an economic reason for doing these tariffs, and that is not something that would be addressed by those troops going to the border of the U.S.-Mexico border.
And Elizabeth, how are markets reacting to this pause announcement?
This is exactly what the stock market had been hoping to see. We saw the Dow drop a little bit at the open. It's now pared back some of those losses. And investors, traders I've been talking to, Diane, say the hope was that this really would be more of a threat than an actual implementation of a policy that would have drastic consequences on trade between the U.S. and Mexico, a huge trading partner, and very immediate consequences for households when you think about the prices of groceries or you think about the price of a car. These supply chains are so intertwined. Worth pointing out that as of now, there are still tariffs set to go into effect with Canada, those 25% tariffs on imports from Canada, 10% on oil. And that is one area where we could see some immediate price impacts when you think about gas prices. And then you have 10% tariffs, additional tariffs on China. So there is still a threat for businesses and consumers when you think about the risk of higher prices. We'll have to see if some of those are reduced as the day goes on, as the president continues this conversation. But companies really holding out hope that this won't be a long-term policy that would force them to absorb higher costs and pass those costs down to consumers.
All right. And Karen, as Elizabeth mentioned, tariffs on Canadian goods are still expected to go into effect at midnight. So what are you watching for there?
The president says that he will be talking to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at 3 o'clock today. So we will be paying close attention to see if the president announces a similar pause on the tariffs on Canadian products. But it's not clear what Canada could offer that the Mexicans did offer to get that off-ramp. You know, we talked about this earlier today. The border situation with the U.S. and Canada is very different than the Mexican border. Customs and border data shows that just 1.5% of migrant apprehensions happen on the U.S. northern border, and the fentanyl issue is also very different at the northern border. And Canadian officials say they're very confused why the president is using tariffs to target Canadians on this specific issue if he's talking about this as trying to go after migrant flow and drug flow. Diane.
All right, Elizabeth Schulze, Karen Travers, Matt Rivers, thank you.